Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers fell 119-109 to kick off the 2025-26 season. Opening night did not go the way the Lakers expected. Though I think for those who watch this team in the preseason, there were a lot of trends that transferred over from the 1-5 preseason and some of the missed opportunity with guys in and out of the lineup, and there really only being one dress rehearsal in the preseason finale. A lot of those issues, the third quarter, the turnovers, the defense, all those things manifested throughout this game. And I think despite having a real shot to win this game, only trailing by 6 points with 4 minutes left and making that comeback with a 13-3 run, the Lakers fell short and fall to 0-1 with a tough playoff rematch on Friday against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the Late Night Gang. Appreciate you guys. We have a lot to get into, but before we get started, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. Make sure you are checking out our YouTube memberships and the Discord. I've not checked in on the Discord yet since the game ended because I was busy in the locker room and on the press conferences and whatnot, but I'm pretty active and was active before the game and during the game on there. So make sure you join the community. And then for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. All right, let's get into our breakdown of the game. Overarching thought for me, really the first thing that came to mind throughout this entire game, and JJ admitted as much post-game, that he said there was a moment where he looked, he said in the first half, he looked down the bench at LeBron and was like, it would be really nice to have that player out there against the Warriors zone. And I had that same thought throughout this game, that the Lakers really missed LeBron. And I'm not going to make the overarching thought about that because they're going to be without LeBron for realistically at least the next 3 weeks, if not potentially longer. But I think the kind of spinning off of that, for me, the takeaway is this group is far away from being the team that they can eventually become, and how long that process is going to take and what shape that's ultimately going to take, I'm not quite sure yet. But they looked far away in the preseason. I thought still looked kind of far away in the Sacramento game, and they continue to look far away really on both sides of the ball. Like, I actually think, all things considered, looking at the performance in the preseason and the performances tonight, I thought the defense was a bit ahead of the offense. The defense had plenty of mistakes and plenty of breakdowns, particularly in the third quarter and then late in the game once the game got close. But I thought the offense was really just in the mud for most of the evening. And outside of a superhuman performance from Luka Doncic, who I will touch on in a bit, and a big night from Austin, but still left a lot to be desired, I think, with just putting it all together offensively. This was a pretty disappointing offensive performance from LA. So I think the big picture for me here is that this is going to be a bit of a process, and that was something that the guys were preaching after the game. Now, the issue here is that there's no margin for error in the West, and we just saw one of the best games, I can guarantee you, of the season in that OKC Houston double overtime game. And those two teams, I think right now, are above both of these teams in the Lakers and the Warriors. But the Warriors obviously look like a team closer to that echelon than the Lakers right now. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a process, and there's going to be some ups and downs here through the first 10, 15 games as this group finally gets acclimated with one another, despite having supposedly all this time that disappeared. But yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a process. So I think there needs to be some patience. At the same time, there also needs to be some urgency. And I didn't feel like that was quite there post game, some of the comments, and you would like to see a little bit more urgency from this group. So I know JJ loves to use the term duality, and I do think there's like a duality here of this group does clearly need some time to gel, and it would have been nice to have gotten that time in training camp in the preseason. They didn't, for various reasons. They're here now. They have to move forward and make the best of the current situation. So I think there needs to be some patience with that. At the same time, there also needs to be some urgency, and I would like to see a little bit more from the group collectively. But yeah, I think like big picture, it feels like this group is not close to being where they need to be on either end. And I think that's sort of where I'm at with how I view them right now. And I think that will mean a really tough game on Friday against Minnesota, and what should be an emotionally charged game for them, a rematch against the team that knocked you out in 5 games in the first round. But like, with the way that they like, if they play that type of offense against not OKC, against Minnesota, like I think they're going to be in for another tough evening, and they've got a lot to work on in the next couple of days. Now, as for notable performers, I mentioned it. Luka Doncic, 43 points on 17 of 27 shooting, 2 for 10 on threes. So he went 15 for 17 on 2-pointers. He hit everything. He was dominating in the middle of the floor, and I want to get to him with one of my takeaways, so I'm going to leave some of the meat on the bone here. But 43 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, a block. I thought he held up pretty well defensively, all things considered. 3 turnovers for him. Austin, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists. I feel like those numbers are not reflective of the actual impact he had on the game. I think he had less of an impact than those numbers would suggest. 1 for 5 on threes. His 3-point shot continues to just not fall. He started the game 0 for 4, hit a 3 late, so that affected that a little bit. 7 for 10 at the free throw line, also 7 for 10 from for Luka at the free throw line. Lakers missed a bunch of free throws. That's going to be one of my stats of the night. But Austin, I thought the playmaking once again was there, and the shot did fall more. He was 8 for 11 inside the arc. So I feel like I saw a lot of it felt like a little bit of an overreaction for Austin, but 5 turnovers, a bunch of missed free throws, missed threes, and those were 3 areas the Lakers all struggled in, and Austin led the way. So by no means am I absolving him. Like, he is in the thick of this. Team worst, minus 14, plus minus in 36 minutes. I do think the numbers belie some of the struggles that Austin had tonight. Also had 5 fouls, and a couple of those were ticky-tack. That the free throws is a whole other story, but with this game, DeAndre Ayton, 10 points and 6 rebounds, did not take advantage of, in my opinion, well enough. In enough situations, the Warriors lack of size. Like, this should have been a matchup he dominated. Part of that was the Lakers' struggles with entry passes and lob passes and pocket passes, and so some passing struggles with this group. They had 20 turnovers collectively, but Ayton, it felt like 10 points, 5 for 7 shooting, had 4 turnovers, including some. He just continues to bring the ball below his chest and is stripped a lot in those scenarios. I thought held up well defensively on switches against Steph and Pods and Kuminga, and he was holding his own in a way that he hadn't quite showed, I thought, in the preseason defensively, but offensively. And really defensively, he should, if he plays 34 minutes, he should have more than 6 rebounds. There's no, Luka led the team with 12. No one else had more than 6. And Golden State had 9 offensive rebounds, and that just can't happen. Marcus Smart is the other guy I want to highlight. 9 points. The stats weren't great. 9 points, 3 for 6 shooting, didn't hit a 3, did get a couple of buckets at the rim, but I thought his defense, his energy, getting into it with Steph a couple times, getting into it just with the Warriors. Marcus Smart approached this game like a playoff game, and there's only maybe a couple of other guys you could say that about on this team. And I think, similar to DFS, you felt a certain spirit, you felt a certain just tenacity with Marcus, and the communication and the fieriness. So to spoil a later point, I think Marcus Smart should be starting moving forward. I think he should replace Gabe Vincent in the starting lineup. I don't think that should be a conversation, and that is what I think should happen. And I already thought that should happen, but I think tonight what was further confirmation of that. Now, as for stat of the night, I'm going to give, where do we start? 19 turnovers from the players. I believe they had 20 overall as a team, if I'm not mistaken. 19 overall. So 19 turnovers, that's bad. And they had 15 in the first half. So they did clean it up in the second half, but 15 and a half is just far too many. Austin had 5, Luka had 3, Ayton had 4, Vando had 2. Vando, it was a really rough Vando night, and the Vando truthers, he was the 9th man tonight. He played the 9th most minutes. He had a really rough sequence where he airballed a wide open corner 3, had a 2-on-1 advantage where he could have either gotten the layup or had a dump off pass, I believe, to Jackson, dribbles the ball out of bounds, and then gets into it with Draymond and picks up a technical foul. And it was like 3 consecutive miscues on Vando's part. I continue to not sense like the same level of defensive intensity and pressure from him as earlier in the preseason. And it's tough to disagree with, like, they might just need his defense to the point where you excuse some of the offensive stuff, but the offensive stuff is becoming really rough. And like the airballing corner 3s just can't happen for a player that should be as important as he should be. But 19 turnovers as a team, 17 to 28 free throw shooting, 61% on free throws. Like Luka missed 3, Austin missed 3, DeAndre Ayton went 0 for 2, Jake LaRavia went 0 for 2, Marcus Smart missed 1. So nobody had a perfect night at the free throw line. They left so many points on the board that could have made this a closer game down the stretch. And then looking at the 3-point shooting, 8 for 32, just 25%. How many times were they able to generate good looks? Just between Luka and Austin, they went 3 for 15. But Gabe was 1 for 4. Vando, as aforementioned, 0 for 2. Marcus 0 for 3. They just left so many opportunities on the board that even with some of the struggles they had on both sides, this should have been a closer game, in a game that really went down to the final possession or two based on the opportunities that the Lakers had. And then takeaway number 1 for me, we got to start with Luka, where I made the point in my state of the Lakers. The number 1 storyline for me, the number 1 thing to be encouraged by was the way that Luka looked in the 2 preseason games, the 6 quarters he played in the preseason. And that continued tonight. 43 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. As aforementioned, should have had a triple-double based on the assist opportunities generated, but guys just weren't making shots. He did whatever he wanted tonight, and I think that is, depending on how you look at it, like glass half full is Luka looked amazing. He looked like a contender for MVP and best player in the world and best offensive player in the world, and he looked like Eurobasket Luka, 2024 Dallas Luka, 2020 Luka, like the best versions of Luka we've seen. That's what he looked like tonight. And the step back wasn't even falling. Like there will be nights where the step back is falling and he hits 6, 7, 8 threes. And if that had happened tonight, he would have gone for like 55. Right. So that's like the glass half full is how great he looked offensively. The glass half empty is he looked that great offensively, and the Lakers were like not really in this game for most of the second half. From the Warriors started the third quarter, which is could be another stat of the night here, 35 to 25 in the third quarter, 16-4 run for the Warriors to kick off the second half and basically put the game away. Like that was the game right there, was the first 3 minutes of the third quarter. Golden State got distance that I don't believe it ever got within 6 points. That was when the Lakers made finally that fourth quarter 13-3 run. They got it within, I think it was 102 to 86 after I think a Kuminga 3 or something like that. Then they go on a 13-3 run, get within 6. It's 105-99, and then Golden State, LA, like Golden State hits a 3, I think, and then from that point on, it's just not like LA gets within 8, and that's the closest they get. So, like, the third quarter is its own thing, and that might be a take. I don't know. They have me flabbergasted here, but point being, like the glass half empty with Luka is that he was this great and the Lakers just didn't have a real shot in the second half outside of that one stretch where they got it within 6 and then Golden State quickly responded. And they're not going to play the Warriors every single night. And the Warriors were firing on all cylinders, really on both sides for much of the evening. Like they had a bunch of turnovers, and I mean, I don't know what Gary Payton II was doing out there, like blowing layups and like he was a bit of a mess offensively for them. And Kuminga had a rough first half offensively with his shot selection and stuff. But the Lakers, like I don't know, it felt like with Luka's performance, they should have won this game or it been more of a game. And the fact that it wasn't, I thought that was a little concerning because I don't think you can. As great as Luka is, and he's gotten close to these numbers, going back to that 2024 season, 34, 9, and 10, you're not going to ask him for 43, 12, and 9 every single night. He played 41 minutes. That is not sustainable. He averaged 35 minutes a game as a Laker last year. Maybe he bumps that up a little bit without LeBron, 36, 37, but they needed every minute from Luka. And I don't know. So I guess it depends how you want to view that. You could view that in a positive way, in a negative way. I lean more positive overall. Like, again, I think if they were playing a bottom tier playoff team or like a lottery team, they win this game with Luka's performance, but they're going to be playing Minnesota twice in the next week. They're going to, at Memphis and even Portland is feisty. Like they got some San Antonio, like they got some not super hard games coming up, but like, games that if they play like this, I think they will lose some of those games in a way that they shouldn't. Takeaway number 2 is going to be a quick look at the rotation. So it matched up largely with the preseason finale. It was the same starters with DA, Rui, Gabe, Luka, and Austin. Marcus Smart was the 6th man. Jake LaRavia was the 7th man, and actually Jackson Hayes ended up playing more than Vando, so Jackson was the 8th man, Vando was the 9th man. Biggest quibble with the rotation would just be the Vincent versus Smart minutes. I thought Vincent did a solid job in like the specific task of trying to track Steph around screens, but he didn't really do anything offensively. And then he also got switched onto Jimmy a bunch and was fouling him or just getting scored on, or if he'd get cross-matched in the paint, he was giving up offensive rebounds or there was certain back cut situations. So I just didn't think that Gabe, and it's really no knock on him per se. It's more so just like, that's not really the role. I made this point a couple days ago, like Gabe Vincent should not be your best perimeter defender in a lineup, in a serious lineup against a serious opponent. And that's where you need Marcus Smart and Vando to take on that load. So it's like, I with Marcus, he had some foul trouble, and maybe part of this is still working him into better shape, and obviously he was in and out of lineups and training camp practices during the preseason. But I would like to see Marcus Smart edge closer to the 25 to 30 minute range rather than 23, and I would rather see Gabe edge closer to the low 20s. I would say if you flip those two, I don't think the Lakers win this game. I'm not saying that by any means. I think like for the long-term health of the rotation, I think that's a big thing. Cause I also thought that once again, we saw the Lakers have these shifts where it was like Jackson, Marcus, Jake, Vando, and either Austin or Luka. And those lineups are just not good enough offensively. Like the Jackson, Jake, Vando, Marcus quartet, the Banshees, if you want to call them that, that's a problematic offensive quartet that it doesn't matter if you have Luka out there cooking or you have Austin out there cooking. I don't think those four should play together much. I just don't think you're going to score that much. And the collective defense from that group has not been quite to the level of like, if they're a lights out defensive lineup, that's one thing, but they're not. So I would like to see it split up a little bit where throw in a Rui for a LaRavia or a Vando and just kind of split that up a little bit with, and maybe it's also moving Gabe in for Marcus and having a little bit of a more, a floor spacer and a guy who could play a little bit more off the ball in Gabe compared to Marcus. So I think that they got to figure that whole situation out. And then takeaway number 3 for me, let's just talk about the third quarter because this has been a thing Austin said it's been a thing since the Lakers since he's been a Laker, and that feels kind of true. It was definitely a thing last year, and that was the first thing JJ mentioned post game was like it's been something they've harped on all preseason. It's something they harped on last season, and they just continue to come out lackadaisical. And he jokingly said earlier in the week that he previously told the guys to just change something at halftime, like tie your shoes differently or change something with your halftime routine. Whatever you're doing, do something different. And I think that was a bit tongue in cheek, but I don't know at this point. Like it's just kind of shocking to see how this group just comes out and lays egg after egg after egg. I also thought JJ was a little too late. Like you could see the game starting to slip away from the Lakers. And I thought it would have been unfortunate to take like a timeout a minute into it. But I think Golden State scored 7 points in like a little over a minute. And it was like 7-2, like within 4 possessions. At that point, I think you based especially on the Lakers track record, and this, I think they lost 5 of the 6 third quarters in the preseason, and then go back to last year, they were a horrible third quarter team. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. JJ said he needs to make some big changes. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like, is it starting a different group or making a bigger adjustment in the third quarter? Because like you do make adjustments at halftime, and I don't think the Lakers are not making adjustments. I think on some level, it's like the players are just coming out with a lack of urgency, and you can only coach that so much. Like I do think part of that's on JJ, but I also think part of it is a trend with the players. And like ultimately, if they continually come out and just look like they're disinterested or just sort of going through the motions, and it's like a preseason game out there, well, that's the result that we're going to see. So I think that's needs to be a big point of emphasis for this group, because they had gotten the game within 1 point. They got the lead. They had that stretch there to close they closed the, I think it was like 13-6, 14-6 to close the first half. And Luka got the N1. Rui hit back-to-back threes. Luka hit a 3. So maybe I think it might have been like 12-6. And it was like all of a sudden Lakers had this momentum. They fouled Jimmy at the end, which Jimmy 16 for 16 at the free throw line. Insane. He nearly outshot the Lakers just by himself. But in terms of makes, but yeah, that was the game, right? Like the first 3 minutes of the third quarter were the game, and LA has to figure that out, because I like this has become a problem. This is a real problem. There's no way around it. Like this is officially a problem. It's been a problem. But you could maybe excuse a little bit of it of, okay, like some of the guys are it's the preseason. They're not taking it as seriously. They're going to come out, and in some cases he changed the starting groups or whatever to start the third quarter. You could excuse a little bit of it. You can't excuse it anymore. This is a real problem. LA continues to get thrashed in the second halves overall, but particularly the third quarter. And it's got to be something that they're better at. And I don't have the answer. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is changing it and changing the lineup or making a couple of player substitutions if there are particular guys that I haven't been able to rewatch the film yet. We'll see. But I think that's a big thing that LA has to address. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. See, we got a few super chats. First one from Gorilla. Thank you for the super chat. Jovan, I'm panicking. They should trade for Wiggins. I mean, I'm on board with the Wiggins trade. I support that. I don't like this result does not dramatically change my view on the roster. I thought the roster wasn't athletic or quick enough, didn't have the requisite perimeter defense. I thought that played out tonight. And yeah, so I get you. I hear you. I understand why you're panicking, but I think that the Wiggins trade or trading for a different starting caliber perimeter player defensively, I think that remains at the top of the Lakers list. And they could win the next 5 games, and I'm not going to change that opinion, because it's more of a personnel thing. It has nothing to do with the results. Like the results can obviously exacerbate the need to make a move potentially at some point here. But I think like looking process over results, the process is this group just doesn't have the requisite defensive talent. Kevin, Thank you for the super chat. Reed is closing over Tare today, even though Reed is terrible defensively and can't even just get the ball to KD. AR plus Jake for Tare plus Adams. Both sides win. So you're saying Tari Eason and Reed Shepard was closing over him. I watched the first half of that game. I didn't get to catch the second half yet. I will be rewatching it for my national show tomorrow, Beyond the Block, which I'll be recording with Jason Timpf of Hoops Tonight, who I'm also launching a new Lakers podcast with, Lakers Collective, with Jason and Trevor Lane. So big week in terms of content with the new national show coming tomorrow and Lakers Collective dropping on Thursday. I do not think that the Lakers would do this. I think I continue to say, like, I think the bar for trading Austin, I think it has to be more of a name. Like I do like Tari Eason, and I know people are going to be on Austin after tonight, and I get it to an extent, but I don't think LA does this. I like where your head's at in terms of like that player archetype. I think there are better players you could get instead of Tari Eason that would make more sense. I think he's, I mean, he probably, I think they got to go away from the double big thing. I don't think that's going to work long term personally, but it's between him and DFS probably for that fifth starting spot. Maybe it's DFS with how things close tonight, but I understand where your head's at. I get it. I think I think that they would want someone a bit above him. Connor Phillips, glass half full, -36 from 3 in the free throw line and only lost by 10. Yeah, I think like that. So that is a big part of this is in like the Lakers had, and that's what I tried to hit on. Like they even with the threes, the free throws, the turnovers, they had a shot to win this game. And in a sense, right? Because I also want to be realistic that they were down 8 to 12 points and sometimes even more for most of the second half. So like, yes, if you make your free throws, if you're not turning the ball over as much, if you're hitting your threes, that margin is smaller and it's probably a closer game. I do like Golden State was in control for basically the entire second half. Once they got, once they went on the run to start the third quarter, they were firmly in control for basically the rest of the way. So I don't want to like revise the history with how the second half went. Like the Lakers had a real shot in the first half, and then they did have a moment there in the fourth where they got it to 6, and then they weren't able to get over the hump. So like they were in the game, obviously, but despite, I felt like Golden State got a little bit laxed in that fourth, especially during that 13-3 run, and they just started settling for threes. They stopped moving like the split cuts and the different post actions and whatnot. Like they stopped. They were kind of playing like similar to what we've seen the Lakers do in times when the Lakers have blown fourth quarter leads, where they're rolling the ball up and trying to waste the shot clock, and then they're settling for contested jumpers, and it allows the other team to get out in transition and create some momentum. And I thought that's what happened with the Lakers. So definitely a glass half full opinion, and I agree. I think from a process perspective, the Lakers have a lot that they need to get better with. Because I also thought like the flip side is, I thought Golden State left a lot of points on the board with like missing layups and like things that they didn't do that were almost like kind of uncharacteristic for them based on the way that the Lakers were defending them. So I think both teams had several. I mean, that's just how a game is. You have a bunch of missed opportunities. Now, I do think the Lakers had a lot of low hanging fruit with especially with the free throws. The threes, I'm a little less like, because this group, we have seen them go through cold spells from three. So that is like, they're not an elite 3-point shooting group. They do have some good shooters, and those shooters were up and down tonight. But I would say they're an above average to good 3-point shooting team, but they're not Golden State. Like Golden State, how many threes did they hit tonight? They hit 17. So they over doubled the Lakers at the 3-point line. But yeah, I mean, you got to make your free throws, and you got to not turn the ball over 15 times and a half. So I'm with you. Normal Maldonado, aka Mama Buha, gifted 10 memberships. Thank you. So we will have to share those with the audience. I'm not quite sure how to do that yet, but I will figure it out on the fly. Kevin, thank you for the super chat. Lakers should have used the MLE to get both Horford and Sharp giving them $7 million each, which is $1 million more than they got currently. So they came here instead. Hindsight's 2020. Like it's hard to. So if they use that, they wouldn't have been able to. So that would have been in place of Ayton and Laravia, and they still would have been able to use the BAE on Smart. I mean, I think it's too early to make a judgment on that. I do like Horford. I do like Sharp. One of the things you have to factor in with Horford is Steve Kerr was talking about this before the game. He's not playing in back-to-backs, and there's going to be some nights he starts, some nights he comes off the bench. So like already slice off, I forget, I think the Lakers have like 14, 15 back-to-backs. Slice off, 15 games, let's just say, from Horford. And then also based on his age, you don't know, guys at this stage of their career can pick up things a little bit easier, as we even seeing with LeBron. It's just like a father time thing. Guys aren't really supposed to play in the NBA past 40, and Horford's right there. So I think with Horford, I view him more as like a very high level backup center. I don't view him as a full-time starter. And with Sharp, well, I do like the air on Sharp. He's unproven, and especially in comparison with DeAndre Ayton. Ayton had a rough game. And I think tonight was like the fear with Ayton, where I think even the 10 points and 6 rebounds, it felt more like 6 points and 3 rebounds, honestly, based on like what just the eye test with his impact. And this is a matchup he should have probably had 16, 18 points, 12, 14 rebounds. And especially with how much he played 34 minutes. That was just not the case. And it felt like they were able to just neutralize him by switching Smalls onto him, and he could not maneuver in a crowd. And that's been an issue with him during the preseason, has been the turnovers in a crowd, and also not finishing with like the one. I will give him, he had an offensive foul, and I will give him credit for this. Like he bulldozed Draymond and dunked on him, and it did not count, obviously, because it was an offensive foul. But I would like to see more of that from DeAndre Ayton, and more of that and less or fewer kind of fading hook shots against a smaller player. Like I think that's the force he needs to play with, and that's not the force that he typically plays with. That's not the force he's consistently played with, and that's something that the Lakers have to try to cajole out of him more consistently. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. Is it because of the new contract? I feel like AR has become like Russ, more of a solo than team. Need to show what he can do by triple-double like numbers with bad efficiency, like multiple three-point attempts, turnovers, and free throws. I think comparing him to Russ is pretty harsh. Russ did not have a lot of 9 for 16 performances as a Laker. He did not have a lot of 26.9 assist performances as a Laker. But I hear you. Like I thought that was my criticism of Austin through the first 3 preseason games, was that it felt like he was calling his own number a little bit more. Now, I think looking at the way that the offense has functioned, if it's not Luka or Austin creating, the offense has looked really rough. And other than when Gabe's on a heater. So like the Lakers are in this tough spot, especially without LeBron. Like I think what we're learning is this roster is not built to withstand LeBron being out. And I thought there was a little bit of optimism with that. Like it can withstand it when Luka just dominates the way he did tonight. I do not expect Luka to average 43 points for a full season. Maybe he does and proves me wrong. But like, so with Luka and Austin, you can get by against half the league, but the top half of the league, you're going to need more. And right now we've yet to see consistency from anyone else in the group. Like I thought, if you go like Luka, Austin, I thought Marcus was probably the 3rd best Laker. And then after that, I really don't know who was the 4th best Laker tonight. I didn't think it was Rui. I thought his off-ball defense was pretty rough, and he got targeted a lot by Golden State on the ball. They were bringing him into screens. Ayton's offensive performance for me took away some, I thought a lot of good defense, but the offense left a lot to be desired. It was not Gabe. It was not Vando. Jake LaRavia had a couple of nice plays in the second half, but he's still figuring out his role. Might have been Jackson, but now we're getting to the Lakers' 8th man. And it was not a good performance overall from a lot of the guys. But I think Austin needs to certainly be better. As I said, I think 26-9 is a little deceiving. I don't think he quite had that level of impact. I don't think this is a Russ situation. I think that's a bit harsh on him. And even with the Russ comparison, like 9 for 16, Russ did not have a lot of high volume, above 50% shooting games as a Laker. Now 1 for 5 on threes is Russ like, and 7 for 10 on free throws is kind of Russ like. But I think I would just say also that I don't think Austin is a guy who is out there trying to get numbers. I don't think that's how Austin is wired. And because the truth is, if they don't win games, I think there will be a sense of like he needs to put up numbers and win games. And if he's just putting up numbers, I think that rings a little hollow. Braden, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Brate, this was very discouraging for me personally. I'm in the boat that this team needs to be built around Luka now, not tomorrow. 3-and-D weighing needed. Welcome to the boat. It's a pretty big boat. We got some champagne in the back. We got a nice little deck for you to jump off and swim. Hope you brought your swim trunks, but no, seriously. I mean, I get why people are crashing out. I get the reaction, but this was obvious. Like you could not look at this team and not think that they needed a better 3-and-D like fifth starter and more perimeter defense. And I'm not saying you didn't think that, but I think that sentiment has kind of been out there a little bit. And it's like, this was obvious when they built this team 3 months ago or 2 months ago. And now we just have further confirmation through the preseason opening night that like there is a glaring hole in the rotation that I think Marcus Smart can kind of fill, but I still think he's probably better as a bench guy and you need to go trade for that guy. Sarah, thoughts on Luka's defense? Was he aggressive enough? He didn't have any fouls until the fourth. I was really impressed with Luka's defense. I thought he held up well on like, so I do think with some of the Warriors actions, especially to start the third, they were running these 3-man actions with Steph, Draymond, and Kuminga on the right side of the floor, and they got a lot of success out of that. And part of that was trying to bring Luka into the fray. And they targeted him a lot. Like both teams were targeting. Lakers were bringing, especially to start the game, Lakers were bringing Steph into every action. Warriors are bringing Luka into every action. That's how these two teams went about it, and it makes sense. Like we've seen the Lakers target Steph before. We've seen the Warriors target Luka or Austin or Rui, whatever. But so like some of the stuff with the cutting and reading some of the stuff, I think just from like a foot speed issue or a foot speed perspective, that can be an issue for Luka a little bit. But I thought when he switched on to Jimmy, even Steph, Kuminga, I thought he held his own for the most part and either just like was stonewalling those guys or funneling them into help. So I thought his on-ball defense was pretty good. I forgot he had one steal, I believe. So like the playmaking wasn't there in the way that we're accustomed to necessarily, but I would give Luka at least a B to B plus on defense, especially like grading on a little bit of a curve for just some of his he's not a stopper, right? But I thought all things like I thought he was solid on defense. In terms of fouling, sometimes stars just don't pick up fouls, and so I guess he could have been more aggressive, but the Lakers also want him more off of the ball, so he's not going to be in as many situations where he is fouling. Thank Charlie. By the way, Luka's saying he's okay today. I was not too happy, but I'm going to stay on the AR bandwagon, not going anywhere. See you in LA, maybe see SMS. Yeah, so I did leave. I heard Luka was going to be a while, so I wanted to come here and go live. So I left before he spoke to the media, and it looks like the Lakers are practicing tomorrow. But Luka said his groin issue was probably nothing. Lakers getting I thought Lakers were going to be off tomorrow. If they won, they probably would have been off. But hey, it's probably good that they're practicing. But appreciate you, Fang Charlie, and yeah, I gotta get back to you. And Chrissy 13, thank you for the super chat. Early Early take, Luka thrives with defenders, length, and spacing, not co-stars who need the ball. Hopefully we could stay afloat till December and trade for needs. Agreed with you. I think those are like we saw it in Dallas. I do think he played well next to Brunson and Kyrie, and that's where I see the potential with the Austin fit of he is not Kyrie, but I think he is on par, if not better than the Dallas version of Brunson. And I think like there were some moments with those two where the two-man game was there and that continues to develop. But overall, this roster needs more length and defense, and and you also say spacing. Like it's hard to find. Like they need more two-way players. That's basically what it comes down to. It's a lot of right now whack-a-mole, one-way guys, and you're trying to piece together these lineups and balance it. And I also think that's where they could do a better job with balancing some of the lineups and rotation. The Storyverse, thank you for the super chat. Why so many drama queen fans after one loss with no LBJ? People are venting. It's okay. This is a safe space. People can vent here. But I also think like for me, a lot of the issue, like if you guys haven't heard the Great Western Forum pod that I did with Pete Zayas, Anthony Irwin, Kobe Price, and Raj, I laid out my concern going into opening night. I laid out some of my concerns with the preseason, and I felt a lot of those things that I echoed on that show played out, especially with the Golden State matchup and their pace and their off-ball movement and the shooting and just their style of play really hit on a lot of the Lakers' weaknesses and things that were concerns of mine from the summer, but again, kind of seen in the preseason and then again now with the current roster. So I do think like I get why some people are. I don't think this is like a meaningless game. Like I think there's a balance, right? Like you can't keep dismissing things and just being like, well, it doesn't matter, you know, whatever. I'm not saying you are doing that, but I know some people are like, well, it's one game, and I get that, but the games matter now. Like this is now, like the Lakers are OKC's 1-0, Golden State's 1-0. Those two teams have an advantage right now over the Lakers in terms of playoff positioning, and that matters. Like if this team wants to be a championship team, they probably have to be a home court team. That's just how it works historically. Luka did get to the finals in 2024 as a 5 seed, but okay, so you got to be a top 5 seed, right? Like that's historically the barometer. So they got to start winning games. It's been one game, right? So you're right to not overreact, and I agree with that perspective. I just think there are some things that we kind of knew were concerns, and they have continued to pop up, and the team has not really figured out how to resolve them. And I look at the third quarter, I look at some of the defensive stuff, I look at the rotation. I think there needs to be some changes made. Glenn, thank you for the super chat. Rui and Vando need to Dragon Ball fusion and morph into one player. That would be great. Not going to panic, but we need chemistry. It looked off today. That was my overarching thought. Like they need more chemistry. They need more reps together. They need more time. Yes, Rui and Vando. I made this point before. I think I was in the was on Discord that I got asked in the Lakers Discord channel about if I can morph two players together, who would they be? Who would I morph and why? And it was clearly Rui and Vando. If you had Rui's offense with Vando's defense, I mean, that player is making $25-30 million. That's the fifth guy that the Lakers need. It's just, unfortunately, they're two different players. 13, thank you for the super chat. I was actually super impressed with Smart. Has the intangibles the Lakers need. He should start next game and hopefully over Rui. Doesn't need to play more minutes than Rui, but set the tone defensively. I agree with the first half of this. I said Marcus was the third and maybe even the second best player for the Lakers in this game behind Luka. I will push back on starting over Rui because now we're getting into dangerous territory where if it's Luka, Austin, Gabe, and Smart, you're just way too small. And especially with Minnesota on deck, I think it should be Rui, Smart, Austin, Luka, and then you go Austin on Mike Conley, Smart on Ant, Rui on Randall, Luka on McDaniels, Ayton on Gobert. I think that's the way you start the Minnesota matchup. If they start Gabe, I think that's a big mistake against Minnesota, and I think that's asking for losing the starting minutes. But so like long term, I agree with you. I've been saying Marcus should be the fifth starter over Rui. For the Minnesota game with LeBron out, that's a different story entirely. And I think they need a certain level of size, and especially if you're taking Gabe off, you still need some shooting out there. So I think Rui's a natural LeBron replacement when LeBron is out in terms of like positional size and just kind of his fit around Luka and Austin. I think it should be Marcus for Gabe. Michael D, do you agree with Timph that swapping AD for Luka flips this matchup specifically? Warriors favored instead of Lakers favored, or just a bad game? That is an interesting thought. I'm assuming he made that tonight. And we will touch on Lakers Warriors tomorrow. We will be touching on both teams tomorrow in our show. So you just gave me some material to ask him about. I think it's a combination of, I also think they miss LeBron. Like, one of the ways the Lakers have, because the Lakers have, especially over the last few years, like fared relatively well against the Warriors. I would feel like, I don't know their win percentage over the top of my head, but I would guess it's somewhere in the 55 to 60% range against the Warriors. Like, they've typically won the season series, or it's always 4 games, but it's at least 2-2, if not 3-1 over the last few years, more often than not in the Lakers' favor. And a big part of that was AD. For like, as I think Draymond does a really good job against AD, but there's just a limitation there. And then once you get into like the Kevon Looney or whoever else is out there, AD is just dominating. And then LeBron and his institutional knowledge against this Golden State team, playing them so many years in the finals and just so many times overall now in the regular season and the play-in and the playoffs again with in 2023, that those two guys are small ball killers, and the Lakers don't really have a small ball killer. Luka's just a killer, so Luka doesn't matter if it's small. Like, I guess he kind of is a small ball killer. In he was getting wherever he wanted in the middle of the floor and just lofting in midi after midi after midi, floater, runner, layup, running hook, or kind of running floater, foul and one, whatever. I do think that this is not the best matchup for the Lakers, because I think Golden State is a bit too quick for them. And I think their offensive strengths hit on a lot of the Lakers' defensive weaknesses, that I don't think the Lakers make good split decisions defensively with a lot of their guys. The screening and the cutting, I think, really messes with them. And again, having AD, remember, 2023, they were funneling Steph and Clay and those guys. They were top locking and funneling to AD. They had a whole defensive game plan around funneling to AD. You can't funnel to DeAndre Ayton that way. He's just not that type of defender. And so I think that, like, to me, it's not even just the offensive end of the small ball. I think it's actually more so the defensive end and not having AD there, and then also missing LeBron. So I think it's a combination of, like, it certainly was a bad game for LA. I don't think they played well, but I do think Golden State is a particularly tough matchup for them with the small ball and the speed and the pace. And this team still does not like to get back in transition, though it was a bit better tonight. And I think some of their reads on screens and stuff, like, it's not a strength of this team right now. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. JJ needs to get the team practicing more 4-on-3s on offense. Every time Luka gets trapped, they look confused, not knowing what to do with the ball. Thank you, Gary. I'm glad you made this point. This is a really good point. And this is, like, they had some good early reads. That's where Ayton got a couple of early buckets. And I think Gabe had a hit him for one, and I don't remember who hit him for the other one. It might have just been Ayton catching a pass from Luka in the middle of the floor. They need to work on this. They also need to work on their zone offense. Golden State's zone, through that, like, they were trying to screen in the zone, and then they were settling for threes, and it was just like, you look at the way that OKC and Houston, and again, I haven't watched the full game yet, but at least in the first half, the way that those teams countered the zones, especially, like, Chet was the ultimate zone buster in that first half of just catching the middle and rising. And that's partly where Luka had some of his success against those types of coverages. But when it was, zoning up to prevent Luka's penetration or blitzing / trapping Luka, the Lakers did not make the Warriors pay enough. And Golden State won far too many of those 4-on-3 and 3-on-2 situations. Now, I will say Draymond is like the ultimate 4-on-3 player in both scenarios. Like the 4-on-3 with Steph, we've seen that. They've won championships in part because of Draymond's success in those reads and that compromising a defense. But defensively, Draymond, like there were times it was 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 and Draymond's blowing up a play or he's at least preventing a basket and forcing a kick out. And that's where he's just awesome in that regard. Just a really as much as he can be to handle sometimes with the refs, like he is a basketball genius. Honcho, yo, how was the overall mood in the locker room? I thought the mood was definitely like a bit down just because they lost, right? And that's human. I think a lot of guys felt they could have played better, and a lot of guys weren't happy with their individual performance. So I felt there was a good amount of accountability in the locker room, but also a healthy perspective of like not overreacting to one loss, understanding that this is a process and that they need some more time together. So I thought like the mood is not good after a loss. It should not be good after a loss. I think that would actually be troubling if it was good after a loss, right? You want guys to be a bit pissed off. You want them to be chomping at the bit to get back to practice, to get ready for the Minnesota game. And that's a game that, like, from a pride perspective, they need to show up for the Minnesota game. You cannot lay an egg against the team that beat you in 5 games. And you know, just that whole situation, they need a palate cleanse of beating Minnesota. So I think overall, the mood continues to be like, we need some time. I would, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more urgency with that of like, we need to turn this around quickly, but I think overall that there's like a patient vibe for now. And Chrissy, I meant for Rui after LBJ is back. So you're talking about the starting group. Then yeah, we're in agreement. I still think Smart should start over Rui. Braden, thank you for the super chat. Sorry, didn't mean to state the obvious. I knew we need more defense. I'm just a bit frustrated. Fans been asking for the same thing for years. My bad. No, man, you're good. You're good. I get you, and I didn't. You know, I think it is clear, and you're. My point, largely, like my point is, I don't want to overreact in the sense of like now all of a sudden the Lakers need to make a move. Like I think they've needed to make a move, and they're going to continue to need to make a move until they make a move, unless they don't make a move. Right now, I'm presenting a riddle here, but they need to make a move. They need to make a trade, and this is going to be an incomplete roster, especially defensively, until they do that. And Christy 13, you and Tim should break down film together. It's a good idea and might be a component of the Lakers collective. The one thing I've said before is like I was actually just talking with Trevor about this earlier today, that he wants to do more film as well. And I know he's been doing a bit more on Lakers Nation, but the issue is you just get copyrighted with YouTube, and then you don't make any money off those videos. And, you know, ideally we're trying to make a little bit of money off of the videos we're posting. So that's like the one thing that we're trying to kind of figure out is, you know, sometimes if you slow it down a little bit or you speed it up or you change the speed, it doesn't get copyrighted, but that's like the one thing. But I think from it would be fun. And I think, I don't know if we're going to break down film tomorrow, but I think for sure in our upcoming Lakers collective episodes, that should be a component. And we're going to be going live, so we could do it live. Mac Roblox 94. Would you have started with Gabe Vincent, and how do you feel about the Lakers against the Wolves in a few days? I would not have started with Gabe Vincent. I would have started with Marcus Smart. I thought with the way things were trending, like to take a step back, I thought Marcus should have been the 5th starter. When we found out LeBron was probably going to be out, I thought it should have been Rui and Marcus. But with the way things were trending, I thought it was potentially going to be Rui and Vando because Marcus was in and out of practice. He only played in a couple of games. JJ kept talking about availability being a really big thing. And Vando started the first 3 preseason games next to Rui and Ayton. So I was like, all right, that group has some continuity. They do need defense. And then JJ throws this curveball of starting Gabe that, you know, no one know what I talked to, like other than people that were in the know knew, but like everyone else from the outside did not know, right? So obviously, like, coaching staff and the people that are making that decision were aware of it, but it was a short list of people who were aware that Gabe was going to be starting. I personally would not have started Gabe. I would have started Marcus. I like, my rankings would have been Marcus, Vando, Gabe, Jake. I think with Vando, I don't know what happened with Vando, but it feels like he's starting to regress offensively again, and you can see him starting to overthink things, and that leading to frustration, and that is making it hard. Like, I also just think at this point we have seen it enough where, like, JJ, I don't think is going to start Vando. I don't think that's a realistic thing. He is more of the 8th or 9th man on this team. We can agree with it. We can disagree with it. That's what it is. So I think that the player who has the real shot to start here is Marcus. And I think that could be the way that this is headed. How do I feel about the Lakers against the Wolves? I'm going to be interested to see how they approach it, because I think Ant and Randall are going to give them some problems, especially without LeBron. It's going to be a totally different matchup compared to Golden State, right? Like, you're going from a team that plays small a lot, and even their centers are stretch fives who are spacing the floor, picking and popping, to Gobert, Randall, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, Ant putting pressure on the rim, and also, being able to step back and hit threes at a high clip. They're young, they're athletic, they're big, they're long. That's going to be a tough matchup. And I also think the backdrop is obvious that this is the team that knocked the Lakers out. And I think you should, like, I believe these matchups mean a little bit more. I think this should be a game that the Lakers really get up for. And it's like, what are you doing this for if you're not getting up for the team that beat you? Like, I think there's like a professional pride element to this, similar to the Denver matchups in previous years. Like, I've said that before. These are the games you got to get up for. So I think with the Lakers having likely 2 days of practice now, I thought they were only going to practice Thursday, but we just got word they're practicing tomorrow. With having 2 days of practice and potentially also a shoot around, that's 3 opportunities to watch film and get on the court and get reps together and work on some things. JJ said they are going to have a specific game plan for Minnesota. He's had 5 months or 6 months almost to think about the playoff loss and what went wrong and what went right and what he would have done differently. Now is his opportunity to do that. So I'm feeling, I think if they can clean up the turnovers, the free throws, shoot at just like an average rate, I think they should be in a competitive game with the Wolves. That said, I think, obviously, as I said at the top, like, they are still a ways away on both sides of the ball. So I would not be surprised if they lost that game, but I think if they can clean some stuff up, they should have a real shot to win it. Mac Roblox 94. The Lakers lose to the Wolves in the next game. Should the Lakers make a trade, and what do you suggest? No. I think they should have already made a trade in the summer. I think they should have made a trade going into camp and having the team built at that point. The fact that they didn't, I think at this point you ride it out until December. I think that's the way that this is going to trend. Even if they start 0-2, you got the Kings game, you got the Blazer. Like, I think that there are some games that they can make up and get back to 2-2, 3-2, etc. So I wouldn't overreact in that regard. But I continue to say, like, long term, they clearly need to make a trade. And Christy 13, since Lakers have practice tomorrow, can you walk us through how you prepare for questions to ask JJ, especially after a loss like this? Well, good question. I'm gonna try to rewatch some of it before practice. I will be finishing Houston OKC in the morning, then recording with Jason, and then I got to get that up as soon as I can. So that's going to be something I'm navigating tomorrow. Also recording an episode with Raj for Thursday. So got a lot of stuff on my plate tomorrow. In terms of what I'm going to ask, I'm probably going to try to come up with something on the defensive end, and or sometimes it's, the low hanging fruit a lot of times is like, what did you see on film that you didn't see live last night? And then that gives him a chance to address whatever's the topic that's really eating at him that he wants to address. But I assume that will be asked by someone else. So if not that, I think maybe a starting question, rotation question, or a defensive question. I don't know yet, but I will be preparing that for tomorrow. But I think for me, the big thing with asking questions is just trying to be curious. And like, for me, I try to keep it about the basketball, and I'm not gonna ask like, what did you think of LeBron's body language on the bench, right? I'm gonna ask something basketball related. So I think it might be, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure what. I mean, it might be maybe Minnesota related in terms of the size and how they try to balance that, because we haven't really seen two big groups, and with Kleba out for 2 weeks, that kind of limits that, because he could theoretically play in a too big look as a spacer. But how they navigate the Timberwolves matchup is something that's on my mind. Rich, thank you for super chat. Were Vando's numbers better as a starter? Yeah, I thought Vando played better as a starter in the preseason, but clearly that was not the role the coaching staff envisioned. And I think they just, like, you know, I will say with that, like, sometimes I know with Golden State, Kuminga's a guy like this where he makes a mistake and you see Steve Kerr and the Warriors coaching staff just lose their mind and get really upset. It kind of feels like Vando is that type of guy for JJ and the coaching staff, where when he's airballing a three or dribbling the ball out of bounds or picking up an offensive foul or whatever, the leash is short, basically, for whatever reason. And I think we now have a sample size with JJ where we know he defaults to spacing and offense and shooting, and Vando does not check any of those boxes. And even in comparison with like Jackson, like I think that the spacing and verticality with Jackson is obviously better than with Vando. So I think Vando's just in it. Like, I don't know if he can not airball corner threes that are wide open, and, you know, play better offensively and continue to work on his game. But I think there's just kind of a limitation to the way that I think JJ views him as a 2-shift player. And that means you're going to play 12 to 14 minutes a night, and maybe someone gets injured or in foul trouble, and that changes. But if he's not playing, he's playing 12 minutes with LeBron out. Like, I don't see how that's really going to go up much, barring an injury. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. JJ should play connect more. Benching him is dropping his value. Had hot shooting games last year, and he can again, and eventually trade him then. I'm glad you brought Dalton up again, because so a couple of updates. Just mentioned the Maxey update. He's out for 2 weeks, or will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. The magical words with Lakers and injury updates. And then Dalton Connect, his year 3 team option was picked up by the Lakers for next season. He's on the books for $4.2 million. I thought this was the way that this was headed. It made sense. Or even like JHS, I think it was just such a lost cause that, I mean, he's out of the NBA right now, right? So I think the writing was on the wall where JHS was a guy who I think the Lakers just gave up on and acknowledged that, like, this guy's just not an NBA player. And if we pick up this option, it's not going to have trade value. It's actually going to lower his trade value. With Dalton, I think there's still, we're not sure which way it's going to go, right? But I think he still is someone who you can squint and see the value and see a potential role, especially like I've said, I think the best outcome for him would be getting traded to an Eastern Conference lottery team where he can play in anonymity and develop and become a heat check guy off the bench. That's, I think, probably his most realistic path forward. But it's not in LA, and it's not under the bright lights of crypto.com and just the Lakers and all that comes with that. So I don't really think he should have played tonight. I don't think this is a good matchup for him defensively. I actually think it's probably the worst matchup for him defensively, because you have to make really quick decisions, and that's just an area that he struggles with, really on both sides, but particularly defensively. So I'm okay with him not playing tonight. I think you should probably try to get him a shift in the Minnesota game, but it seems like JJ really wanted to win this game. I mean, you look at the minutes, and 4 guys played 34 or more minutes when this was a group that was like relatively conservative with their minutes last year. JJ tried to keep most guys in the low 30s or below. They went for it tonight, and ultimately they came up short. Danica, thank you for the super chat. Luka, year 8, still hard carrying. Is there hope? There's still hope. Don't give up. There's still hope. It's going to take some time though, and you just got to hope that the Lakers are not drowning by the time they start to coalesce together, right? Like they need to at least tread water. Danica, what did you see out of Luka and AR defensively? I thought Austin, like he was primarily matched up with pods, and I thought he did fine against pods. With how much the Lakers switched, guys are going to get switched on to Steph and Buddy and whatever. I thought Austin was fine defensively. I'd have to go back and rewatch that to give you a better answer, but at least to my recollection and what I put in my notes, I didn't like, he had the turnover. I remember one play, he had a turnover, came back, took a charge, did have 5 fouls. Like the fouls were a little bit, there was the one with Kuminga where Kuminga's like fading away. Austin's trying to get out of the play and their legs like accidentally clip. And that's just, I don't really put that on him. Jimmy had one that was a bit of a touch foul that Austin I can share, was not happy about in the locker room after the game. And, that's another one so I thought he had a couple of fouls that were just kind of bad luck or tough calls. But in a way, though, I like to see him being a little bit more aggressive on that end. Like Marcus also had 4 fouls, and I think sometimes that could be a good thing, being a little bit more aggressive, though it did cause JJ to pull him in the first half with a few minutes left, and that Lakers still went on that run. But and then with Luka, I talked about it earlier, but I thought Luka's defense was really solid. I thought he held his own in switches, and they were targeting him a lot, and I don't think that was the primary. Now they got some stuff out of like the Lakers covering for Luka and sending more help and whatnot, so that there was a ripple effect to Luka being involved as many actions as he was. But overall, I don't think Luka or AR were the 2 guys I was looking at. I think there's some guys that were a bit more detrimental defensively in the starting group. Angelo, thank you for the super chat. LAL looked really awkward and tense today of all the teams. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's always like, first day of school vibes with opening night, and some teams handle that in different ways. And there is a certain spotlight and attention that comes with, like, we know, like some guys are built to play for the Lakers, some guys aren't. And it's not something that everyone is cut out for. And I think the season will show us who is built for it and who isn't, right? Like it's just a different level of attention. And when you have a bad game and you're hearing about it on social media, and you could, do that with certain teams, and you're not going to hear about it at the scale that you will with the Lakers. And there's just like this added pressure to it that for some players they thrive on, for some players they crumble under, and some players are just kind of somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I thought they looked like a group that did not have a lot of reps together. And that was exactly my concern with the preseason, was they just didn't look like a group that had played a lot together, and they were changing some things offensively. They've been changing things defensively, and they haven't quite clicked yet. And that's really my big takeaway from tonight, is they have not clicked yet. I think on either end, I thought there were some more signs of positivity offensively in the preseason, but they're still a ways away, in my opinion, on that end. But yeah, I think it'll come. It's just, again, you got to hope you're not like 2-5 by the time it starts to click. You want to at least be like 4-3, 5-3, again, kind of treading water or a little bit above there. And Chrissy 13, I know you're still a beat writer by trade, but has your Laker fandom started to come back now that you're independent? As you said, you let go of it. Thank you for the super chat. It's a good question. I think for me, there's an extra layer to it of like, I think there are some people who can be fans of players or teams and talk to them and interact with them. But I feel like for me, it compromises my ability to do my job, right? And I think there are Laker YouTubers, podcasters, content creators, whatever, who are clearly fans. And I think some of them are very obviously like biased or whatever. Some of them are able to be a bit more objective. I think for me though, if I'm like, it's just kind of I guess to the beginning of this question, like the once I started being a beat writer and really being in locker rooms and talking to these guys, it was just sort of like, I would say my mentor, really, if you want to blame anybody, blame my mentors, but my mentors kind of made it clear from the jump of like, there's no, like, even one of the first things you hear when you start covering games is like, there's no cheering in the press box. There's no clapping. There's no, like, you're not even really supposed to have like reactions to stuff. You're supposed to sit there stoically. And of course someone dunks on someone, you're going to have a bit of a reaction, but that's just kind of how you're taught. So I don't want to compare it to like being a monk or something like that, but there's a little bit of that of like, it's kind of beaten out of you, metaphorically, that you're not supposed to be rooting or cheering or even rooting for certain outcomes. So I guess I've been maybe more open about my prior fandom and growing up. And that was stuff that I tried to not be as open about, just because I didn't want people to think I had certain biases or whatnot. But I would say for now, it has not come back, but who knows, maybe at some point in the future. I think it would be hard for me to do coverage the way I want to, where if I was out there saying I'm a fan of the Lakers or a fan of player X or whatever, I think it just gets tough to cover it. Like for me, at least, it's tough to come off as being honest or objective. David Parks, do you think it was a mistake to close with Gabe over Marcus, Rui over Jake, Ayton over Hayes? Those three did not close out well on the perimeter and did not bring effort, in my opinion. Luka can't do it all alone. I thought it was a mistake for sure to close with Gabe over Marcus. I thought Marcus outplayed him, particularly on the defensive end. And then even offensively, Gabe just wasn't, like, he hit a three, Marcus didn't hit a three, but he just wasn't giving you... He was giving you the spacing technically of just being a corner shooter and a shooting threat, which has value. And they were playing a bit off of Marcus, but I just thought Marcus was the overall better and more valuable player tonight. Rui versus Jake, like Rui started to get it going during that fourth quarter, where, he got it going late first half during that run. And then he hit another three in the fourth. And he is, I think at this point, it's safe to say, like, the Lakers' best or at least most reliable shooter. I don't know. Like that one's a little closer to me. I don't think Jake played, like, I thought Jake had a better second half than first half, but I don't think Jake had some like amazing game. He is better defensively than Rui. And I did think Rui got lost a bunch on off ball actions and, just some of the decision-making, what was not great tonight. Ayton versus Hayes. I think the Ayton situation is a little tough, because I think no matter how much he's struggling, like he does seem like, to me, from my perspective, a guy you need to kind of keep engaged and involved, and like, you don't want to bench him on the first game of the season, right? Like it's one of those things where you got to balance it. And even like JJ talked about this last week or so, where he said, like, with the starting group, that there are some guys it means more to, and as a coach, you have to factor that in. And I think Ayton coming here on a discount or in this kind of make good situation, I don't know if benching him to close opening night would have been the best, like, long-term thing. Now, I agree in a way, because I think I did think Jackson overall had a more probably at least impactful game offensively, and then defensively we know about the mobility. I actually thought Ayton was fine defensively for the most part. Like I didn't have too much to quibble with. But so I would say the first one for sure. The other two I'm not as sold on, and I also think Rui and Ayton are two guys who care about starting and closing, and I think that's something you have to navigate. Daily meditation. JJ Redick desperately needs a new teammate, veteran 2 guard who makes 3-point shots after setting a ghost screen for the ball handler. I think this is at Gabe. JK, not to be confused with Jonathan Kuminga. The late night post game legend is back. We are so back. Yes, we are so back. This is fun. I missed doing this with you guys with real stakes. Glenn S with an interesting comparison. Is this team like Kobe's team pre Pau Gasol? I would not go that. It's interesting. I would say if LeBron was not on the team, maybe, but LeBron's on, like, they're getting LeBron back at some point. So you got to remember that. That guy's still pretty good despite the body language on the bench. Danica, what did you think of the lack of off-ball action for this team? I think I thought the offense regressed. I thought it looked better in the Sacramento preseason finale. They were running some stuff in the beginning that I liked, but once Golden State went to zone, and it just, like, the Lakers, it was a far more frustrating game in my opinion, offensively than defensively. I think that was my, like, takeaway with that, but certainly I would like to even just have more situations in which non-Luka Austin guys are bringing the ball up, initiating the offense, getting LA into different actions, and there are different things you can go to with Luka in the post, or 3-man actions, or horns actions, or whatever, that the Lakers just, I don't know what it is, but yeah, the offense has a lot of room to, and now with that said, they had looking at it right now, they had a 108.7 offense rating. That is not good. 118.6 defensive rating. That is also not good. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement on both ends. Tali Khalifa missed the game because of work, going to catch up after the stream, but what did you think about the team effort overall? I thought the team effort was there. I don't think this was necessarily an effort thing. Like, even looking at transition, that's a big effort swing thing. Golden State won that 13-6. Offensive rebounds, Golden State won 9-7. They won rebounds 40-39. Free throws are close. Turnovers are close. Points conceded off of turnovers are close. Points in the paint was decidedly in LA's favor, almost by double. So I thought, like, a lot of the effort markers were close. The big stuff was LA did not shoot well. They turned the ball over far too much. Like, Golden State did too, but they made up for it with the free throw shooting and the threes. So LA didn't hit fewer than half the number of threes that Golden State hit. They hit 9 fewer free throws, and that was they made 4 more field goals than Golden State. It's just the threes that they lost the math game to some extent. So I think the team effort overall was there, and there were some good stretches defensively that I was impressed by. There were some good stretches offensively, particularly end of these beginning, some of the stuff in the beginning of the game, end of first half, and middle of fourth quarter. Those were, I thought, the best, like, 3 stretches of offense we saw from this. And they also have this trend of, like, they'll run a bunch of stuff to start a game and then they just go away from it. And that's largely what happened tonight. Like, they continue to be impressive when they come out of timeouts or sideline out of bounds plays, but the overall system, I think, could be better. But I thought the effort was good. I think Golden State just presents a lot of problems for this team with their speed, their IQ, their passing, their cutting, their movement, all that stuff. Like, that's tough for LA to match up with. And then defensively, or LA on offense, Warriors on defense, they're very switchable, and they were able to live, like, they basically just let Luka eat and they were able to stay home on everybody else. And like Luka still got 43 and 9, but just wasn't enough tonight. Mr. Hudson 87, they were trapping Luka every possession. Yeah, I mean, they were trapping and blitzing Luka a lot, and that's why the Lakers stopped screening as much for stretches. But Luka was still able to get into the middle of the floor and go 15 for 17 on twos. Smokey, ball pressure was weak. I agree. I think the ball pressure needs to be better. Mo Love, it took me like 4 plays to remember how annoying Draymond is. He's one of the most annoying players ever. Golden, Lakers need a trade where they can win with minimal assets like the Rui trade. I guess the blueprint for this is some combination of Maxey and or Dalton for something. And if you can flip that into a rotation, ideally a starter, but if not, like at least a guy on par with Smart or Vando defensively and kind of in a similar like impact mold, I guess more so with Smart, that's like a win. But yeah, it's going to be tough to get a notable upgrade without including Rui or Gabe or a first or even some combination of that. Like I think you're going to have to give some stuff up. 3H Hoops. Hi, Jovan. Are you confident that Pelinka can build a competitive roster rather than waiting for buyouts? Well, the Lakers are not even in a position to add any buyout players right now. And, they got the whole, you get hard capped at the first apron, which they're already pushing up against the first apron. And so I guess from that sense, I have more confidence in them like making a trade than landing some buyout stud. I would say that the results are mixed, right? Like they do have some real hits, obviously. Like the Luka trade, I don't even, that's in its own like universe with a move. But the DFS trade, the Rui trade, the D'Lo trade, D'Lo and Vando, they've done some pretty good in-season trades. Granted, those are 2 seasons, like they also had 2022 where they didn't make a move, 2024 where they didn't make a move, 2023, 24, and 25 off seasons where they didn't make a move. So I guess actually the batting percentage when they make a move has been good in terms of trades in season. The issue has been they have been very selective, and I think at times have been okay with just standing pat. And so I think it's too early to make a call in either direction, to be honest. But I think the potential is there for a more competitive roster. Three H Hoops again says Pods should have been our pick rather than JHS. I mean, Pods, Jaquez, Cam Whitmore, you take any of those. Lego Tortoise Builder, Jovan, you think the Warriors were less focused on Luka because of scoring abilities and more on the role players? I think they realized at some point they just couldn't stop Luka, and like they were blitzing him, especially early, and then LA started to score out of that, and then they mixed in different things, and they were zoning, and anytime he kind of slowed down around half court, and when it was higher screens, that's also like kind of invited the blitz, because then they knew that they had more time to recover, because that pass kind of hitting the short roll guy and then him having to make that read, by that time the Warriors defender could get back into the fray. I think, I guess to some extent, they were like, there's nothing we could do with Luka, like especially more so in once he was in the inside the arc, because I felt that's where they could have sent a little bit more help and helped off of certain guys, and they didn't. I think they realized, like, no matter what we do, he's going to generate a good, whether it's himself or finding the open man, like it's going to be a high percentage look. So we'd rather just have Kuminga or Jimmy or Draymond or whoever just contest, hope they don't foul, and just play solid one-on-one defense. And he cooked that. He cooked it every time. But there was like, they did get some stuff in the pick and roll, but I just was not. Also, guys didn't make shots. So that's another thing where I said earlier he could have had like 12, 13 assists easily if more guys made shots. But I think that it's something that defenses have to decide on is, do you let Luka score or do you leave the role players? And I think they did ultimately be like, we're going to live with some of the one-on-one stuff if we can stay home on the other guys. Danica, what do you think of DJJ on this team? Derek Jones Jr. I would love DJJ on this team. That not realistic because he's a Clipper, but he'd be great. Ebriz, Jovan, you're probably better than Vando. Nah. Vando would beat me one-on-one. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. Laravia needs to be more aggressive and shoot threes. I agree. I think he needs to be more aggressive overall and more confident. Like I made this point now several times. Like it feels like he just doesn't have a clear role yet, and the Lakers need to figure that out. Miss Optimist, hi Jovan. Any updates on LeBron of any kind? No updates. I mean, saw him leaving the locker room post game. That was about it. But nah, I mean, just sounds like reevaluation mid-November or coming up here, but like with likely out through mid-November. I want to be clear with that. And then we'll see if that gets pushed back at all. But unfortunately, no updates on the LeBron front. Fang Charlie, the gang tonight is not in a good mood. Haha. Yeah, the gang is crashing out right now, but it's okay. We we went through it in the preseason as well. It's all it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Ursa Major 2000, what's the point in starting Gabe? I think it was a matchup specific thing where they wanted Gabe's speed defensively with switching and navigating screens and staying with guys on cuts and stuff. And then offensively, if we're comparing him to Marcus, Jake, and Vando, he has been the most consistent shooter and offensive player up to this point in the season. A point I've made before and made earlier tonight. JJ loves shooting. He loves spacing. And it seems like when he's in between deciding on players or whatever, he will default more toward the offensive option and the guy who's a better spacer and shooter. So I think Gabe did have a good preseason. So you factor in, several big performances, including the recency of the Dallas game. And then you can kind of see the two-wayness with Gabe. I think it's a little overthinking the process though, because Gabe cannot be Rui should not be your wing stopper and Gabe should not be your best perimeter defender in a starting group. And that's where I think there's a little bit of overthinking going on here where it should be Marcus or Vando, but I've kind of given up on the Vando pipe dream because JJ just he's buried in the bench and he's 8th or 9th in the pecking order. So that's not going to happen. But Marcus Smart is the player who realistically you can make the argument for over Gabe. And I think the last 2 games they've played, he's been better than Gabe. I thought he was better than him in the Sacramento game. I thought he was better than him tonight. So I think that should be the change going into Friday. Jake from State Farm, did anyone pick up coffee? He is in Milwaukee. Connor Phillips, would you be surprised if Luka breaks Kobe's 10 50-point games in a season record this year with how he looks and the cast around him? I wouldn't be that shocked. No, I would not be. I mean, that's a big number, right? And there's a reason why that's a record and why Kobe is the one who said it. But I think he could. Let's set the over under at 4.5 50-point games for Luka. I think I would take the over. That's an interesting line. What do you guys think? Would you take the over or under there? Fang Charlie, thank you for the super chat. I do want to know what are transportation options to get to and from crypto from downtown LA. Is Ticketmaster the only way to go to get Lakers tickets? Thanks, gang. There's a lot of different ticket options. There's SeatGeek. There's Vivid Seats. I'm sure I'm forgetting. If you just look up Lakers tickets, you'll see, and you could always double check that it's a legit site, but there's several big, ticket sites. So I wouldn't only go through Ticketmaster. And then if you are coming from downtown, you honestly might be able to walk, though it depends how close you are to the arena. You got to be careful in certain spots in downtown. I would say it depends. Like if you're close to the metro, you might be able to take the metro. Otherwise, your best bet might be to take an Uber, a Waymo, or a taxi. Or if you're up for an adventure, you can scooter over. If you could find like a Lime scooter, and that could be something that's fun. But I as someone who's traveled a lot, I'm used to Ubering, so that's like typically my default. I know that's not everyone else's default. So again, it depends like how close you are. Based on your question, it sounds like you're coming from downtown, and if that's the case, then you could potentially walk, but you could also scooter or Uber. Gee, did those ticket sites pay you to say that, Jovan? Don't mention them. I will. I might be having a partnership with one of them coming up, but I'm not going to say which one yet. But I did just give free promo for a lot of sites. All right, about to wrap in a couple. If you guys got any more questions, let me know. JCU, can we make a play for Wiggins, Jovan? Yes, I think it's probably more of a December play than right now. Mo Love says nothing like catching a Lakers game and having a near-death experience on a scooter in downtown LA. Yes, there are a couple areas you want to stay out of. Jake from State Farm with the 5 more minutes sticker. Keon Park, Giannis. I think it's probably New York right now. John, do you think Hayes sets better screens, rolls harder, catches and finishes lobs better, and guards the perimeter better? I assume you're comparing this to Ayton. Yeah, probably to all. I will say I was impressed with Ayton's switching defense tonight and him holding up in switches. I thought he held up largely fine. In general, though, that's been more of a strength for Jackson. Certainly catches and finishes lobs better, rolls harder, screens. I think it depends on the night. Sometimes Jackson gets a little too overeager and sets some illegal screens, as we know he is due for like one every game. But yeah, I would say overall, yeah. Smokey, Jovan, Dylan Brooks, or Wiggins, who fits better? I think Wiggins is quicker and more athletic. Brooks is probably better against bigger forwards / wings. So I think you could talk me into either one. I think specifically for what the Lakers need, I feel like Wiggins is a bit of a better fit defense. I think Brooks is a better fit offensively. I think Wiggins is a better fit defensively because Brooks is a better shooter than Wiggins. Although he comes with some extracurriculars with the shot selection. Wiggins is a bit more gifted, skilled, talented scorer, offensive player, but like specifically for playing off the ball, just shooting threes, spacing the floor, I have more confidence in Brooks. But then Wiggins, I think, is a more athletic, quick, explosive defender compared to Brooks. So I think it's close. Like I have been coming more around to the Brooks side, but I think between the two, I would lean Wiggins. Brian Farmer, is Rob Pelinka on the hot seat for this year? No, I mean, he just traded for Luka 8 months ago and got a contract extension. He's not on the hot seat. Danica, if Lakers had the cap space, do you think Luka has the pull to attract free agents, or does the pressure of being a Laker overpower the desire to play with Luka? I think he has pull. I think we saw them win a couple of sweepstakes with Aiden and Smart had multiple suitors and suitors who could have paid them more money, and they chose the Lakers. So I think Luka definitely has the pull to attract free agents. Ooh, Brian Farmer, who'd win in a 2v2 match? Luka and Jokic versus Shea and Giannis. are we doing make it, take it? Or what are the rules here? Because I think that kind of influences I think Shea and Giannis probably win just because I have more confidence in their defense versus Luka and Jokic. Like I'm just envisioning Shea and Giannis just blowing by them and getting layups and dunks, or Shea getting to the free throw line. Both of them. But yeah, I mean that I don't know. That would be a fun 2-on-2. I just have more confidence in Shea and Giannis getting stops, I guess. Game tight. Jovan, do you think the Lakers should make a play on Kuminga while his price is low and the Warriors still want to trade him? I will say I was very impressed with Kuminga. He had the rough first half of like 1 for 6 shooting, but like the decision making, the passing, I thought like he looks like a different player. What do you have? 17, 9, 6, 1 steal, only a couple turnovers, hit 4 threes, which tied a career high. I like Kuminga. I thought his defense, like, I thought he had defended Luka fairly well too. Like, great offense will always beat good to great defense. That's just how the NBA works. That's how basketball works. And that's what happened. Luka was just scoring over him, but I thought he held up well. Jake from State Farm, what do you want to see in Friday's matchup? I want to see the Lakers. I want to see them approach this like a game, like have a must-win mentality, play with urgency, treat this like the team that beat them in the playoffs, which it is that situation. I would like to see a little bit more offensive organization and better counters. I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but like the 4-on-3 situations, and let me see if I can. It was Gary. The 4-on-3 situations and they're countering zones and stuff like that needs to be better. And then with Minnesota, it's going to need to be gang rebounding. And I think like being really locked in with the help. And we've seen them have successful game plans against Ant before with that, zoning up and having basically 4 guys around the elbows and the low post area and making sure like kind of having that shell there. I think they're going to need to do that, but it's going to be a group effort because if it's just Ayton battling Gobert and Randall and McDaniels, it's going to be a long night. Like they're going to need the other guys to crash and to box out and to be like, I want a level of physicality from this team that I thought they had to some extent tonight, but it could be even better in that game. Sarah, it was nice to see Dirk at the game supporting Luka. Agreed. Dirk is the man. Amaris, can someone explain to me why Jimmy's getting an all-time whistle? That was insane. Like I will say, like what Luka only had 10. Yeah, I mean Jimmy obviously got a better whistle than Luka. Like I did think they both got superstar calls, but yeah, I mean Jimmy got like 4 calls that were pretty. Yeah. Smokey, Ant-Man, you got to worry about Naz Reid and Randall McDaniel. Well, yeah, there's a pecking order here, right? But they got a lot to worry about. Jake from State Farm, so I'm hearing Rui got to be a beast on Friday. Exactly. It's a big Rui game. Sky Falcon says throw different defenses and Ant at test his playmaking. Yeah, I think JJ doesn't want to put 2 on the ball. I get it, but you got to mix it up. Young Lido, would you trade AR for Keon Ellis and Tari Eason? You could somehow swing a 3-team trade. That is interesting. I do like both guys. I think, again, though, I think optically the Lakers would want to sell Austin for higher. Game tight, 8-8. I hate to say it, but Ant's going to cook Reeves all night. Austin actually held up well in the series statistically. He defended Ant the best of anybody, but I think this is where Marcus Smart should get the Ant assignment, which is what Omaris is asking here. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I appreciate you guys. Got to get up early to rewatch Rockets Thunder and Lakers Warriors and then go live or record tomorrow and then I'll do a live with Raj. I'll see. But if not, record for Thursday. I was tentatively planning on recording for Thursday, but I appreciate you guys for rocking with me for late into the night, first late night session of the regular season. We've had a few preseason games and knocked off the rustiness, and now we are looking to gel and get some on-court time together. But in all seriousness, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. On the road to 50K subscribers by the end of the year. Let's make that happen. Also check out the YouTube memberships and the Discord. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you all. Talk to you then.